Edith Clarke, the world's first female electrical engineer.
There is a future for women in engineering, and someday the only limitation will be their own lack of ability. This is a quote from Edith Clarke, world's first independent female electrical engineer.
Born on February 10th, 1883, she went to college at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 1918, and the following year she became the first woman to earn a degree in MS Electrical Engineering.
She worked as an electrical engineer and a computer pioneer, and she was the first woman to be a full voting member of the American Institute of Electric Engineers, teach electrical engineering, and earn a profession standing in Tau Beta Pi, the oldest electrical engineering fraternity.
She worked in the engineering field for 26 years, and then became a professor at the University of Texas. And then she died at the age of 76 on October 29, 1959. Edith Clarke was the first independent female electrical engineer in the United States, and she was the first woman to earn an electrical engineering degree.
Edith Clarke paved the way for women in engineering and advanced women's contributions to STEM.
Without her, women would have stayed out of the engineering world for much longer than they did.
Our project relates to the history of our theme of rights and responsibilities because
Edith Clarke was a woman who pushed past the rights that had been given to women at the time. In Edith's generation, women lived a very restricting life, and it was a show of wealth for women to have no responsibilities at all.
But Edith Clarke was a woman who broke the barrier and went to college, which only 19% of all women did. Edith Clarke took on the responsibility of helping women create a space for them in the engineering world.
After Edith Clarke graduated college in 1908 with an electrical engineering degree, the rate of women who went and graduated from college went from 19% to about 40% by the 1930s. Edith Clarke pushed past the rights and responsibilities given to women in the late 1800s to the early 1900s and showed women that they can do things just as well as men can.
Edith Clarke graduated in 1908, and before her graduation, the percentage of women who went and graduated from college was only about 19%. But after she graduated, by the 1930s, the percentage doubled to about 40%.
This shows that Edith Clarke showed the world that women can work in the STEM field too. She also helped women see opportunities to go to college and advance women's education.
Furthermore, this proves that without Edith Clarke, the advancements of women's contributions to STEM would have happened much slower.
We use this New York Times article as a primary source to show Edith Clarke's impact on the world back then.
This article shows how Edith Clarke was a woman of many firsts and shocked the whole world. To most women, a short circuit means the iron won't work or the kitchen stove is without heat. A short circuit to Miss Clarke means a delay for power for entire communities, the shutting off of enough voltage to run as many as 28,000 cook stoves.
This quote from the article shows how big Edith's job was and how important she was to the community. The change from women only being at home and taking care of children to having women controlling power for whole communities and standing in a field dominated by men shows how much of a challenge Edith took on.
The article says that Edith has written a few rules of her own that have been accepted as additions to the science. She not only joined the field of engineering, but she has even changed the ways that they are still affecting us. There's no demand for women engineers as such as there are for women doctors, but there's always a demand for anyone who can do a good piece of work. Edith Clarke.
This quote proves our thesis because she said that women aren't as significant as men, but she thought and was correct in the fact that men would sooner or later realize that they needed people who can do good work.
And women may be the way to do that. She said that quote sometime in the 20s, and in the 80s and 90s, as more engineering programs are open to women, the number of women enrolled in engineering programs increased dramatically. Therefore, the number of BA/BS degrees in engineering awarded to women in the U.S. increased by 45% between 1980s and 1994.
On February 8, 1926, Edith Clarke became the only woman who had ever addressed the Electrical Institute, where heads of powerful universities and electric companies gathered.
Her presentation was on transmission of electrical power across long distances, and she graduated in Massachusetts. She held her position for 6 years.
Edith Clarke is very inspirational to future electrical engineers and scientists because she was the first female electrical engineer and made the calculator by herself.
In conclusion, Edith was a woman who took on the many challenges that women faced in her time and introduced the idea of women working in fields previously dominated by men. She altered the world's perspectives of women and their roles in society. Edith cleared more paths for future generations.
Edith Clarke was an important figure in history, and our findings show that because she caused a spike in attendance in women's education. This is important because we don't know how long it would have taken for another woman to take on the role that she did.
Some key points are that Edith was the only woman standing in a field of men, and she faced a lot of challenges and criticism, but she overcame these challenges and was a successful engineer.
Another important fact is while many women handled everything that was going on in their house, Edith Clarke was responsible for the power to entire communities. This shows how big of a role Edith took on and how many people relied on her. Yet even when under all that pressure, Edith was very good at her job, making her an inspiration to everybody.
Therefore, the number of BA/BS degrees in engineering awarded to women in the U.S. increased by 45% between 1980s and
Edith Clarke altered the course of history, and without her, we have no idea what point women would be at today.